Hello and welcome to today's episode that deals with an important aspect of the Indian political system, that is, the electoral system, its process and the stresses and strains faced by it. I am Sakshi Mandwal and the subject expert today is Kirti Kumar, retired senior reader of Department of Political Science, Indraprasth College for Women, Delhi University. In this episode, we will cover a wide range of interesting topics. We will examine the importance of the electoral system in a democracy, the various complexities in conducting elections, the electoral process, the roles of various officials who conduct it, the powers of the Election Commission, and so on. India has adopted a democratic form of government. Periodic national elections of the candidates are the foundations of any democracy. We in India cannot think of the democratic process without free and fair elections. Elections have three main functions in a democracy. They are a means for people to choose their representatives in parliament, state legislative assemblies, as well as choosing the president and vice president. Elections are a means of choosing governments in almost all parts of the world. Today, there are very few states in the world that do not conduct elections, although the meaning and quality of these vary enormously. The electoral system is indispensable for a democratic government. Elections enable every adult citizen of the country to participate in the process of government formation. These elections are held on the basis of universal adult franchise, which means all adult citizens of India above 18 years of age have the right to vote, irrespective of their religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Election is a complex exercise. It involves machinery, schedules, and rules. To ensure free, fair, and impartial elections, the Constitution establishes the Election Commission. It is an autonomous, all India body. It has been given the power to control and conduct the elections to the Parliament, the state legislative assemblies, offices of the President and Vice President. It is free from legislative or executive influence. Even the courts cannot intervene once the election process begins and until the results are declared by the Election Commission. During the elections, vast powers are assigned to the Election Commission. The Election Commission consists of the Chief Election Commissioner and such other election commissioners as may be decided by the President from time to time. Till 1989, there was only the Chief Election Commissioner, who was assisted by a larger number of officials. The Election Commission became a multi-member body on 16 October 1989, when the President appointed two more election commissioners. The senior-most person is appointed as the Chief Election Commissioner. The Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners are appointed for a term of 6 years or till the age of 65, whichever is earlier. It is important that Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners should be free from all political interferences. The terms and conditions of their service cannot be changed to their disadvantage during their tenure. Though the Chief Election Commissioner is appointed by the President, he cannot be removed by him. The Chief Election Commissioner can be removed from his office only on the grounds of misbehavior or incapacity by the President after a resolution is passed by each House of the Parliament by majority of total membership and two-thirds majority of present and voting. However, since the other election commissioners and the regional election commissioners work under the Chief Commissioner, they may be removed by the President on his recommendations. To ensure that elections are held in a free and fair manner, the Election Commission appoints thousands of polling personnel to assist in the election work. These personnel are drawn among magistrates, police officers, civil servants, clerks, typists, school teachers, drivers and peons. Out of these, there are three main officials who play very important role in the conduct of free and fair elections. They are Returning Officer, Presiding Officer and Polling Officer. In every constituency, one officer is designated as the Returning Officer by the Commission in consultation with the concerned state government. However, an officer can be nominated as Returning Officer for more than one constituency. All the nomination papers are submitted to the Returning Officer who scrutinizes it and accepts it if it is in order. The Returning Officer also allots election symbols in accordance with the directions issued by the Election Commission and also accepts withdrawal of the candidates, if any, and announces the final list. The Returning Officer supervises all the polling booths, ensures that votes are counted under their supervision, and finally announces the result. In fact, the Returning Officer is the overall in charge of the efficient and fair conduct of elections in the concerned constituency. Every constituency has a large number of polling booths. Each polling booth, on an average, caters to about 1,000 votes. Every such booth is under the charge of an officer who is called the Presiding Officer, who, apart from supervising the polling process, ensures that every voter gets an opportunity to vote freely. After the polling is over, the ballot boxes are sealed by the Presiding Officer and delivered to the Returning Officer. Every Presiding Officer is assisted by 3 to 4 polling officers. They check the names of the voters in the electoral roll, apply indelible ink on the finger of the voter, issue ballot papers, and ensure that votes are secretly cast by each voter. The indelible ink cannot be removed easily. It is put on the first finger of the right hand of the voter so that a person does not come again to cast vote for the second time. This is done to avoid impersonation. The Election Commission carries on the electoral process for the conduct of elections according to the procedure established by law. In India, both the Lok Sabha as well as Vidhan Sabha elections take place in different phases. For example, the General Elections 2009 was conducted in 4 phases. This is to enable the security forces and those monitoring the elections to maintain law and order and to ensure holding of free and fair elections. To facilitate the process of elections, a country has to be divided into several constituencies. The task of delimiting constituencies is generally performed by the Delimitation Commission, consisting of 5 serving or retired judges of the Supreme Court and the Chief Election Commissioner, who is its ex officio member. All secretarial assistance at all levels, national, state, district, is provided to the Delimitation Commission by the Election Commission. The Delimitation Commission is constituted by the government from time to time. Each constituency has a comprehensive list of voters. It is known as the electoral roll or the voters list. The Commission prepares the electoral roll for Parliament as well as Legislative Assembly elections. The electoral roll of every constituency contains the names of all the persons who have right to vote in that constituency. The electoral roll is also revised from time to time, generally before every general election, by-election and mid-term election in the constituency. The revision is carried out from house to house by the enumerators appointed by the Election Commission, and all eligible voters are registered. A person can be registered as a voter if, after fulfilling the following conditions: has to be a citizen of India, has to be 18 years old, is a resident of the constituency. An important function of the Election Commission is to recognize political parties as national parties or regional parties. The Commission has laid down the criteria for both national and regional political parties. Political parties have symbols which are allotted by the Election Commission. Two political parties cannot have the same symbol. If there is a dispute between two parties for a particular symbol, the decision of the Election Commission is final. For example, the palm is the symbol of the Indian National Congress, lotus is the symbol of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and elephant is the symbol of the Bahujan Samaj Party. These symbols are significant as they can be easily identified by the illiterate voters who cannot read the names of the candidates, and they also help in differentiating between two candidates having the same name. The process of election officially begins when, on the recommendation of Election Commission, the President in case of Lok Sabha and the Governor in case of the State Assembly issue a notification for the election. 7 working days are given to candidates to file nomination papers. The scrutiny of nomination papers is done next day. Candidates can withdraw their nomination on the second day after the scrutiny of papers. The gap between withdrawal of nomination papers and election is not less than 20 days. A person who intends to contest an election is required to file the nomination paper in a prescribed form indicating his name, age, postal address and serial number in the electoral rolls. The candidate is required to be duly proposed and seconded by at least 2 voters registered in the concerned constituency. Every candidate has to take an oath or make an affirmation. These papers are then submitted to the returning officer appointed by the Election Commission. Every candidate has to make a security deposit at the time of filing nomination. For Lok Sabha, the security deposit is Rs 10,000 and for State Assembly Rs 5,000. But candidates belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are required to deposit Rs 5,000 for the Lok Sabha elections and Rs 2,500 for the Vidhan Sabha elections. The security deposit is forfeited if the candidate fails to get at least 1/6 of the total valid votes polled. The returning officer scrutinizes all nomination papers on the day fixed by the Election Commission. This is done to ensure that all papers are filled according to the procedure laid down and accompanied by required security deposit. The returning officer is empowered to reject a nomination paper on any one of the following ground. Number 1. If the candidate is less than 25 years of age. Number 2. If the candidate has not made a security deposit. Number 3. If the candidate is holding any office of profit. Number 4. If the candidate is not listed as a voter anywhere in the country. Campaigning is the process by which a candidate tries to persuade the voters to vote for him. During this period, the candidates travel through their constituency to influence as many voters as possible. In the recent times, the Election Commission has granted all the recognized national and regional parties free access to the state-owned electronic media, the All India Radio and the Doordarshan to do their campaigning. The total free time is fixed by the Election Commission, which is allotted to all the political parties. Campaigning stops 48 hours before the day of polling. A number of campaign techniques are involved in the election process. Some of these are A. Holding of public meetings. B. Distribution of handbills highlighting the main features of the election manifesto, programs and policies. C. Door-to-door appeal by influential people in the party. D. broadcasting and telecasting the speeches of various political leaders. During the campaign period, the political parties and the contesting candidates are expected to abide by a model code of conduct evolved by the Election Commission of India on the basis of the consensus among political parties. It comes into force the moment the schedule of election is announced by the Election Commission. The code of conduct is as follows. Number 1. Political parties and contesting candidates should not use religious places for the election campaign. Number 2. The speeches should not be delivered in a way to create hatred among different communities belonging to different religions, castes and languages. Number 3. Official machinery should not be used for the election campaign. Number 4. No new grants can be sanctioned. No new schemes or projects can be started by the party in power once the election dates are announced. Number 5. A party or candidate cannot misuse mass media for partisan coverage. Though the Election Commission provides free access to media for a limited time to all the recognized national and state parties for their campaign, this does not mean that political parties do not spend anything on their election campaign. The political parties and the candidates contesting the election spend a large sum of money on their election campaign. However, the Election Commission has the power to scrutinize the election expenses incurred by the candidates. There is a ceiling on expenses to be incurred in parliamentary as well as state assembly elections. Every candidate is required to file an account of his election expenses within 45 days of declaration of results. In case of default or if the candidate has incurred expenses more than the prescribed limit, the Election Commission can take appropriate action and the candidate elected may be disqualified and his election may be countermanded. In order to conduct polling, large number of polling booths are set up in each constituency. Each booth is placed under the charge of a presiding officer with the polling officers to help in the process. Voters cast their votes secretly in an enclosure so that no other person comes to know of the choice made. It is known as a secret ballot. After the polling is over, ballot boxes are sealed in the presence of agents of the candidates. Agents ensure that no voter is denied right to vote, provided the voter comes within the prescribed time limit. The Election Commission has started using tamper-proof electronic voting machines to ensure free and fair elections since 1998. Each machine has the names and symbols of the candidates in a constituency. One electronic voting machine can accommodate maximum of 16 candidates. But if the number exceeds 16, then more than one electronic voting machine may be used. If the number of candidates is very large, ballot papers may be used. The voter has to press the appropriate button to vote for the candidate of their choice. As soon as the button is pressed, the machine is automatically switched off. Then comes the turn of the next voter. The machine is easy to operate, and with this, the use of ballot paper and ballot boxes is done away with. When the machine is used, the counting of votes becomes more convenient and faster. The electronic voting machines are used in all the 7 Lok Sabha constituencies in Delhi in 1999. From 2003 onwards, electronic voting machines are used in Lok Sabha as well as state assembly elections. The sealed ballot boxes or electronic voting machines are shifted in tight security to the counting center. Counting takes place under the supervision of the returning officer and in the presence of candidates and their agents. If there is any doubt about the validity or otherwise of a vote, decision of the returning officer is final. As soon as counting is over, the candidate securing the maximum number of votes is declared elected by the returning officer. If at the time of polling a booth is captured by some anti-social elements, the Election Commission may order holding of re-poll either in the entire constituency or particular booths. If a duly nominated candidate belonging to a recognized party dies at any time after the last date of nomination and before the commencement of polling, the Election Commission orders countermanding the elections. This is not just postponement of polling. The entire election process, beginning from nominations, is initiated afresh in the concerned constituency. The functioning of Indian electoral system has experienced a number of strains and stresses adversely affecting the working of our democratic government. Let us look at some of them. The electoral process has become a very expensive proposition. As a result, our Jantantra is degenerating into the Dhantantra, which means to say that democracy degenerating into the oligarchy of rich. Either the rich people or their representatives are entering Parliament and state legislative assemblies to promote their interest. There is a feeling that policies are framed to fulfill their ambitions and not to cater to the interest of common man. The role of unaccounted money in elections has become a serious problem. The political parties collect funds from companies and business houses and then use this money to influence the voter to vote in their favor. The business contributions are mostly in cash and are not accounted for. Many other corrupt practices are also adopted during election, such as bribing, rigging or voters' intimidation, impersonation, and providing transport and conveyance of voters to and fro the polling stations. The reports of liquor, blankets, saris, etc. being distributed in poor areas are frequent during elections. Till 1967, the criminal used to support their political masters. Very soon they realized that instead of helping others to become ministers and legislators for money, it is better for them to get those positions. It resulted in criminalization of politics. It means direct entry of criminals in political parties, parliament, state legislative assemblies, and even in local bodies. The political parties got involved in the use of anti-social forces for mobilization of party funds, for management of elections, for organizing meetings and conferences, and even for recruiting the workers at lower levels from anti-social elements. Caste is a fundamental aspect of social structure in India. Castes and subcastes dominate social and political life. The electoral and political support is mobilized through caste. Thus, caste gets politicized. It is used more in rural areas than in urban areas for mobilizing support. Generally, the selection of candidates for a constituency is based on the consideration whether the candidate can get the support of a particular caste or castes. In fact, people are asked to vote for their caste candidate and often without thinking they vote en bloc for a candidate of same or other caste. The office bearers of the party are appointed on the basis of caste. The selection of candidates and their election in Haryana is influenced by Jats and Ahirs, in Rajasthan by Rajput and Jats, in Karnataka by Vokalingas and Lingyats. India is a multi-religious, multicultural and multilingual country. The religious sentiments of the people have been exploited by the political parties to win the support of people in elections. The fact is that religion has been politicized. Selection of a candidate from a particular constituency is generally made after considering the relative strength of different communities. Communal loyalties of the voters are appealed at the time of the election campaign. All the political parties do not have equal opportunity in respect of access to resources. The party in power is always in an advantageous position than the opposition parties. Often, there are widespread allegations of how the party in power misuses government machinery. All these features lead to violence, booth capturing, rigging, bogus voting, forcible removal of ballot papers, ballot boxes, burning of vehicles, and so on, that result into loss of public faith in elections. In order to restore the confidence of the public in the democratic electoral system, many electoral reforms have been recommended from time to time by Tarkunde Committee and Goswami Committee, which were particularly appointed to go into the details of electoral reforms in the year 1974 and 1990 respectively. Out of these recommendations, some have been implemented. In fact, it was under the chairmanship of the then Chief Election Commissioner T.N. Seshan that the Election Commission initiated many more measures to ensure free and fair elections. Some of the reforms which have been implemented so far are: Number 1. The voting age has been lowered from 21 years to 18 years. This has helped increase the number of voters. Number 2. Another landmark change has been the increase in the amount of security deposit by the candidate to prevent non-serious candidates from contesting elections with an ulterior motive. Number 3. Photo identity cards have been introduced to eradicate bogus voting or impersonation. Number 4. With the introduction of the electronic voting machine, the voting capturing, rigging and bogus voting may not be possible. The use of electronic voting machine has resulted in reducing the cost of holding elections and also the incidence of tampering during counting of votes. Number 5. If a discrepancy is found between the number of votes polled and the number of total votes counted, the returning officer can report the matter forthwith to the Election Commission. The Election Commission may either declare the poll as void at the particular polling station and give a date for fresh poll or countermand the election in that constituency. Before we end, let us summarize what we discussed today. We tried to understand the electoral process in India, its numerous advantages, how it has given a voice to the common man, the role of the Election Commission and its officers, the way political parties and candidates try to misuse the electoral process with narrow issues like caste and religion, and the need for electoral reforms, stresses and strains in the electoral process, role of electronic voting machines, repolls and countermanding of elections. There is no doubt that India needs drastic poll reforms, but still the fact remains that Indian elections have been largely free and fair and successfully conducted. It gives the country the proud distinction of being the largest democracy in the world. That is all that we have for you for today. Thank you for listening and all the best.